Okay, in this video I'm going to walk you through how to use Apple device management. I'm using Intune here, or Intune, to manage Apple devices. Devices are in supervised mode and without user affinity, so managed devices but multi-user devices. How to get them to authenticate, to enroll in Zscaler as managed devices that can then be used by multiple different users. Okay, so the starting point would normally be let's push a certificate to the device and use that certificate to authenticate into a platform. However, the challenge with that is that Apple doesn't provide you a mechanism on iOS devices to do an identity preference. So on an iOS device, on a OS X device, on my Mac, I can say, here's a certificate. Whenever you go to login.microsoftonline.com, use this certificate to authenticate. You can't do that with an iOS device. So we need to find a slightly different method. Okay, so we'll walk through this in stages. So I've got my iOS device enrollment profiles. I'm saying I'm going to use Apple Configurator with no user affinity. And I've uploaded the serial numbers of my devices. I'm going to be specifically using this device here. And you can see here it's enrolled without affinity. And I can download the profile which I already have on my device. So if I before I start enrolling the device, then what I will also show is the configuration policies, configuration profiles for these devices. So I'm going to use a certificate. I'm going to use SCEP to push I'm going to push a profile for SCEP to the device. And what that SCEP certificate will do is enable me to use it as a PK init to get a Kerberos ticket. And then I can use the Kerberos ticket to authenticate, to do a transparent authentication and enrollment. Okay, so if we look at the SCEP configuration first, we'll come in here and edit it. What I'm using is it's a device certificate type, but I'm pushing the subject name and the user principal name being the device serial. Okay, so I will get a certificate that will say the serial number of the device at my domain. And it's issued by my domain controller, my SCEP server. So I need line of sight to my SCEP server for this enrollment to work. And then I've got a bunch of tickets, extended key usage types here, which enable me to use this this certificate to get Kerberos tickets. Okay, so it's a two-part process. First one is the SCEP certificate gets pushed. And the second part is I use this Kerberos extension to say, okay, well, push the principal name as the serial number and use the SCEP certificate as my PK init to get a Kerberos ticket from my domain. And I can use that certificate then to authenticate to things in my domain, or more specifically, autologon.microsoft.AzureAD.SSO.com. And that endpoint there is the Kerberos configuration for Azure. So when I try then to authenticate into Azure for my SAML configuration, that will challenge for a Kerberos ticket, and my device will automatically send that Kerberos ticket. Okay, so that's those two pieces. My SCEP for the PK init, the SCEP SSO configuration. I'm going to push the Welsh Geek root certificate, and then I've got a VPN configuration which configures Zscaler Client Connector, which I will jump over to here, which shows all the settings that are enabled. This gets pushed, but you can use any of the configuration profiles. But this is pushing through the serial number into Client Connector as well. So everything's tied to the serial number. Okay, so the other important thing therefore is that I have a service principal name or a user principal name inside of my directory for that serial number. So I'm effectively enrolling a device into Intune, and it's an unmanaged, it's a managed device without user affinity. So there's no specific user assigned to it, but I am pushing a user certificate to it to identify the device to do a user level authentication. So slightly confusing, but I have a credential, a user in my directory here, which matches the serial number of the device. Okay, so when the Kerberos, that SCEP certificate is used, it's going to go off and get a Kerberos ticket on behalf of this user, which we'll then use to authenticate into Azure or Entra. Okay, so those are the couple of pieces there. Let's come back across here, and I'll just briefly show you that my configuration inside of Zscaler is to go to login.microsoftonline.com/my tenant ID, SAML ID. So I'm set this up for SAML configuration, and we'll come into the mobile portal later on, and we'll see the device enrolls. So those are all the setups necessary. So if I come across to my Apple configurator, I can, before I do that, actually, I will come across to my managed device, and you'll see here it's supervised, so it's already enrolled for supervision, but it doesn't have the MDM profile installed. There is no VPN configured, and there is no profile configured for my MDM. So what I will do is I'll go in here and I'll add the profile that I showed earlier. I've already downloaded the configuration, and I'll add that. And what that'll do, it'll get pushed to my device, and you generally do this with DEP or something like that for supervised devices when they're shipped out from Apple, but I'm just doing this manually because I don't have that process. So I drop this management profile onto the device, and we'll see it pop up over here shortly with a little bit of luck. And what that's doing is it's pushing that profile on. That's telling it to go off and talk to Intune and start the enrollment process. So first off, it goes off and it generates the SCEP certificate for Intune MDM, enrolls it in device management, and now, as it's supervised and managed by Intune as that managed without user affinity, it is now going to go off and get all of the other configuration profiles that we talked about, the Kerberos EXT, the root certificate, and the Zscaler VPN configuration. So we'll start to see those flow into here. It'll take a couple of seconds to do that whilst it first off gets enrolled, and then it goes through the cycle of pushing those things through. So we see the root certificate come through. We see it get the SCEP certificate, and if we look at the SCEP certificate, the common name is the serial number, and then we'll see that those email addresses and user principal names are the serial number at my domain. And then later on we'll see this Kerberos come down. This is my Kerberos credential that's necessary. This is the extension to say, okay, when you see a Kerberos challenge from these hosts, you should respond with those credentials. So what I'm going to do is I come across to my domain controller here, and that's zoomed in a bit too much. Let's zoom out. So this was the client enrolling it. It connected to the domain controller and went off and got its SCEP certificate as part of the enrollment process. So if I come across to my device here, and I should have all of these things enrolled, all things being equal, if I let's close that down. Make sure that we've got everything clear. If we browse to the domain controller, I should as we see here. I send a request. I get a 401 unauthorized, so it sent a authenticate, negotiate challenge, and my client then went off and asked for a Kerberos ticket and got a ticket back. So the ticket request at this point says I've got my the seed token, which was the SCEP certificate, and the client came back and they got a Kerberos ticket back, ticket granting ticket. And at that point they went off. The ticket granting ticket was probably a bit further up, but I got the request for the service, and I was able to authenticate in to the application. Okay, so we can see that Kerberos tickets are working. That's all good. So let's close that down. But what it means is we've also pushed in the Zscaler Client Connector configuration, and that Client Connector configuration results in this VPN configuration that we see here. That's passed all the details in, but we do actually need to sign into Zscaler Client Connector now. So if we open the Client Connector process from before, open Client Connector, it'll automatically log in and redirect to login.microsoftonline.com and automatically enroll. And at this point we saw the ticket request here. It said I've got a ticket granting ticket, and I'm requesting a ticket, Kerberos, request body, the service name, and we should be asking for a ticket for Azure AD somewhere. I'm not sure why I didn't see the ticket come back. I think I might be filtering incorrectly on this. But we got the ticket, and we transparently authenticated. So we see that the username is properly completed in here, and traffic is being processed by that user request, and everything there as that user. So if we now go through to access something like, we go back to that domain controller. Traffic is passing through Zscaler Internet Access, and we should be able to go to, let's go to my Apache server. We should see those logs come through for the policy engine into private access. So if we come over to our mobile portal here, let's refresh these devices. We see the enrolled device now for iOS was properly enrolled. User ID, device information, and everything. ZPA is enrolled at everything. And we can come across to take a look at our diagnostics. Here was the user policy iOS. Oh, I actually blocked access to Apache because I didn't have access for that. So that explains why I wasn't able to see it. But of course, the username at this point is the serial number of the device, which is therefore unique. And if I come across to Zscaler Internet Access, I can see my user being the managed device ID there. If I look at my analytics and the web insights, take a look at the logs for the last 2 minutes. We see the traffic being filtered based on the user credential there as well. So with that, what we have is a device that's enrolled without user affinity. It's not dedicated to a specific user, but it has a user certificate on there that is seeded on the serial number of the device. We can see that on the properties here that tell us that it's a supervised device. There's no user affinity assigned to it. And it was pushed through Apple Configurator. That certificate is then used to provide a Kerberos ticket. We use that Kerberos ticket to authenticate into Azure AD, and that Azure AD authentication is used to enroll Zscaler Client Connector for Zscaler Internet Access and Zscaler Private Access. Hope this is useful. Mark at zscaler.com.